Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I will be making a book review on an old book I found in my house. It was published around 2001 and it belonged to a childhood friend of mine. I think we must have swapped books and forgot to swap them back. And it's titled A Single Rose by Pamela Griffin. It is a heart song romance, which is the Christian version of the Harlequin romances we grew up with. And while reading the book, I found out that the story is quite interesting, and I was like, what if I read old books this year? And I just focused on books published in early 2000s and earlier than that. And I would love to do that. So if you'd love to see that, please hang around, subscribe. All right, so we're gonna get started on the book review. The title of the book is A Single Rose. This is half of the book. It fell apart. um this book, we had it when we're she must have had it when we're early teenagers, when we're very very young, and so that's why it's really an old book. Really it's worn out, right? But it was such a good story. Okay, so the book starts by introducing us to the main character, obviously. And the main female character's name is Marisa. She has a floral shop, and she has a flower shop, and she also is a wedding planner and also has plans to buy a wedding chapel. So she's very very motivated, right? And we find out that she has some trust issues. She likes murder mysteries, she likes thrillers, mysteries, and she has recently, a year ago, she had her heart broken by the man she was supposed to marry when she found out that he was cheating on her with a friend of hers. And so she is, in this place where she's not really trusting of people. Anyways, so the main male character, Antonio, he is a field actor. I'm just gonna call it. He's a field actor. He has tried his hands at at trying to get professional acting jobs, but he hasn't been able to get anything. Especially, I think they made mention of the fact that because he looks like Antonio Banderas, nobody wants two of the same thing. It's implied, right? So because of that, he has moved to her small town. He has moved to Marisa's small town, for a fresh start. He left Hollywood and he wants a fresh start in this small town, right? And so when he comes into her shop, he requests for a single yellow rose. And because there's sparks, they meet and there's sparks. She comes out of the other shop, the wedding planning shop, I'll just call it that, into the floral side. And she had been eating some pastries that her best friend, who provides like the pastries and the cakes for the weddings they plan, had brought so her friend had brought her some pastries and she was trying them. And so she has sugar smeared all over her lips, and so he wipes them off with his bandana, like, oh, let me, a perfect gentleman. And so the sparks fly, right? Anyways, she tries to sell him more flowers, because your girl has to make money. So she's trying to push more flowers. What about this red one? What about this bouquet? Blah blah blah. And he's like, no, I just want a single rose. Okay, that is a bit suspicious, right? All right, but she just brushes it from her memory, brushes it from her mind, and they go on with their life. Of course, her friend teases her, about like the connection, the spark, and she's like, oh, nothing, there's nothing there, blah blah blah. She eventually finds out that he has moved in to the empty house across the street from her own house. And of course, being neighbors, they interact with one another. And every now and then he comes into a shop, like very often he comes into her shop to buy a single rose. And because it's a small town, she would know if he was dating anybody, because the rumors will spread, right? So he's not dating anybody and he's new in town, and yet he's buying a single rose. Okay, and it's not long till she finds out that till she reads on the news till she reads in the news that there's a cat burglar in town that is robbing people, and his calling card is a single yellow rose. And so even though she has all this attraction to this guy, she regards him with suspicion, and she decides to unravel the mystery and find out if he is the one that is robbing all these people and taking their jewelry. So Antonio joins Marissa's church and begins to act and begins to coach the kids on acting. And because of this, he and Marissa grow closer, but she holds back because she suspects him of being the cat burglar. And so, to just get clarity on everything, she decides to trail him one day. And so she trails him to another town and finds him, like, she finds him in the parking lot of like what is a very luxurious like retirement home. And so she's talking to him like, oh, you don't have, like, he's surprised to see her, like, what are you doing here? And she on the other hand, she's saying, oh, you don't have to do this, even though things are hard right now, you do not have to steal from this guy. She does not like actually say steal. I don't think she actually says steal, but she's like implying like, you do not have to do this, you do not have to do this. And he's like, what are you talking about? But he eventually just takes her along to see who he came to see, and she realizes that he came to see his grandmother. And she knows his grandmother because she watches old movies, old murder mysteries, all those kind of things. And his grandmother was very popular back in the day, and so she's so like starstruck to see his grandmother. And then she finds out the story of the yellow rose, right? And it turns out that the yellow rose is what had Antonio's grandfather used to woo his grandmother when she was like very popular. Other people send bouquets of flower, but he would just send a single rose, and so that got her attention. And so even after he has passed, Antonio decided to take up the tradition, and he decided to move to her town because her town was closer to where his grandmother's retirement home is. And so she gets clarity on this, and she's so relieved to find out that he's not the cat burglar, right? But one fateful night, when she told Antonio that she would not be at home after this incident, and they grow closer, and they get closer because she decides, okay, so he's not the cat burglar. I can trust this guy. I can get close to him. Only for her to come back from work one day after the whole incident with his grandmother and find someone that has his same physique jumping from the window of her house. And this is after she had told and she had showed Antonio her very prized jewelries, right? So she finds someone with his physique jumping from her window, and so she tackles the person, and she's like, oh, but I love you, you don't have to do this, blah 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 blah. Even though you're a thief, she does not say even though you're a thief, but she says even though you do this, like I still love you, and we can get to the bottom of this, we can work on this, blah blah blah. She tackles this masked guy, she tackles this thief down, and she she chases him. She's in hot, but he's able to shrug off from her, right? And she chases after the thief, thinking it's Antonio, shouting after him, thinking it's Antonio. But the thief takes Antonio's part of the house. Like behind Antonio's house, there's a jungle, like a bush, a forest. So the thief takes Antonio's house and enters into the forest, and she chases after him, only for Antonio to come out from his house. Like he came up from his house and saw her darting into the bush, and he starts to suspect, like, what is she doing running into the bush? So he runs after her and asks her what's going on, and then she tells him that, and she's surprised to see him, right? So he finds out that, so you still thought I was the thief, right? But eventually they're able to tackle the thief down, and the thief is apprehended by the police, and all is well that ends well. But the thief eventually turns to Christ, and even though the thief is in prison, they go to visit him. Antonio and Marissa go to visit him, and the thief turns to Christ, right? So it's a very interesting story. I did not touch on every part, but it's very, very interesting. And that's the thing I loved about all the small books we grew up with. They look very small, but they can pack a punch. They are very interesting. So that is all for today. If you'd love to see more, please subscribe, and you would see me in the next video. Bye.